I feel like Marketplace makes it easier for people that aren't serious. Whereas Craigslist actually took a little bit of like emailing. You actually had to call somebody. You couldn't just be like, hey, is this still available? So the car had nitrous too to get it on the converter to even be able to get it on two-step. Because it wouldn't build boost without the nitrous to get the thing actually to spool. So you'd have to hit it with like 100 shot. I used to be so scared when we first turned it up to like 30 pounds. I'm like,
you don't hear that number very often.
No, I'm like,
okay? Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm like, are you sure 30 pounds okay? And then we started going up in like 35. I'm like, aesthetics to me is very important in drifting. That's like part of it, you know?
Yes.
It can't drive good without looking good. Somehow sourced a knuckle in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee and drove 2 hours to go pick one up so I could drive the Touge, because that was like a bucket list thing. And I think still, like after this whole event, I think it's going to be really hard to ever match something that wild. It's going to become a problem is that drifting, it's becoming so oversaturated with different venues and places.
Yeah.
Good and a bad thing. Like it's good that you can go drive wherever you want, but it's a bad thing because it makes it so only the strongest organizations survive.
If you had to choose, where would you say in the country it has the best drift scene?
I'll get axed for this question.
They said that I couldn't do it, so I went and did it. W's only, you know I've been.
Welcome back to the #1 drift podcast on YouTube. I am Dawson, and we have...
I'm Justin Medina.
If you don't know who he is, he drives the baller S2000.
Yeah, I've had my S2000 for a long time now, but I've been drifting it for 2 years, so it's been pretty cool.
Nice. All right, well, this is actually like back-to-back Justin episodes. So the one coming out, which is tomorrow, will be Justin Hard. Do you know who that is?
I'm pretty sure I know.
He's crew chief of the Donut Media car. Alex.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so actually back-to-back Justin podcast. So
all right.
That's pretty cool. But before we get into this, don't forget, subscribe. Look down below you if that button is still red. Go ahead and click it and hit that bell notification while you're at it so you never miss a single episode. And if you do want to be on the podcast, of course, don't forget you can email me at thecircleofdrift@gmail.com. I think, yeah, on the screen, whatever. Just make sure to put drift resume in the subject line so I can organize it all and keep up with it. But that's pretty much it. So if you want to kind of give a rundown on who you are, where you came from, what got you into cars, stuff like that.
Okay. So my name's Justin Medina. I've been into cars pretty much for forever. Since before I could drive cars, but I just couldn't own a car yet. So, but I work for Link ECU. I've worked for Link for, I think 4 years now, or going on 5. Can't remember. It's all just kind of flowed together, to be honest. But I originally came from BMX background, which I feel like a lot of us drifters do. Like, you know, we started out chasing adrenaline, you know, and here we are now driving in cars. And it's kind of how it went for me. Once I got out of, you know, could be able to drive a car, I couldn't afford a cool car yet. So I kind of was still hooked on the BMX kick thing. And that was like my main transportation still. And then once I got about 18 or 19, I bought a 99 Civic Si EM1, which was my first like cool car that I had. And that's pretty much what just spiraled me into cars. So, but I've had a pretty interesting motorsports background, far as I originally came from being a Honda kid or like street racer style kid.
Yeah.
I've always messed around in cars going sideways, but originally I never really drifted like actual on a track or anything. My friends always did. They always said I should do it, that I'd be good at it. And I don't know, it never really caught my attention to actually go try to do it. Yeah, it's just kind of, I always liked it. Like I liked watching it, enjoyed it. But to me, I don't know, I liked going fast in a straight line for a long time. And then
that's surprising. You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like it's usually, I feel like, I don't know. I liked racing people. I'm super competitive. So my thing was like drifting was, I didn't know this at the time, but the drifting community reminds me so much of like the BMX and skateboarding community. And with drag racing and doing that stuff, I just never had that same feeling of hanging out at the skate park, basically, is what it feels like when I'm with drifters. Yeah, it feels like we're hanging out, you know, like skate park sitting on the ramp. It's like, all right, you do a run. And then, you know, like your buddies do a run or whatever. And then then you go, and it just feels like you're hanging out in a ramp with your buddies. And that's that's my favorite part about drifting now. But yeah, I was in drag racing for a really long time. Like I said, I did like the little street racing stuff or whatever you want to call it, probably like most people.
Didn't we all?
Yeah, and then from there, did a little autocross too as well. My car itself has like this big history of things I've done with it that a lot of people.
So you're taking the S2000 through all of this?
Yeah,
Holy shit.
So
okay.
my S2000, my whole thing behind it was
Speaking of, sorry, we're actually at the Riverside 50K event, and we're outside. It's hot as balls, so if we're sweating, sorry.
Yeah, definitely look like we're taking a shower. We didn't just hop out of a shower. We've been sitting in a shower all day.
I've been fucking dripping on track. Anyways, sorry.
So yeah, my S2000, I originally bought it. It was like my goal I set for myself to buy before I was 21. And before I was like 21 even too, I was like, oh, I'll never be able to afford one of these cars, even though they're not that expensive now being an adult.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is a big goal for myself. If I can buy one before I'm 21, that's my goal. And I did. I beat it by 3 months, which was really cool. And I didn't get the nicest one. I paid $7,000 for my car, and it's an AP2. It had 114,000 miles at the time.
Oh,
so, like, buying an S2000 for that nowadays, pretty much.
About it, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Non-existent.
Yeah, the prices on them are just.
What does a rolling shell go for those?
So generally now, when I see nice, clean rolling shells, they're anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000 at least usually. When that's with like no engine, no drivetrain, nothing. Usually, it's just interior rolling shell. Usually the tops ruin too, because the tops are expensive. They always rip.
Yeah.
That's another thing. But yeah, they're expensive. So I really lucked out. I looked for a long time, and I was saving every single dollar I had to buy this car. I had to borrow $400 from my uncle, which thank God that he did that, because if I wouldn't have got this $400, I literally spent all my money, and I used a credit card to eat for a couple weeks until I could get a couple paychecks and actually pay him back, have money to survive. And I literally poured everything into buying this car, and then I got it. And I live in Michigan, so it was my only car at the time because I sold my other car and was saving up and just bumming rides to work and sharing rides with people. And I forgot about the winters, and we get a lot of snow in Michigan. So I was shoot, I daily drive this car.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I daily drive this car, rear-wheel drive sports car, and I didn't think about being able to buy a second car to daily drive. I just couldn't afford it. Also, like I said, I just poured.
Just wanted what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't gonna give up on the car. Like that was the thing I always wanted. So I daily drove this car through the winter, like multiple 7 inches of snow, driving this thing 40 minutes one way to work, like. And actually, the car is awesome in the snow. So if you have an S2000 you don't care about, I highly recommend driving in the snow because it is a ton of fun.
Damn.
Like, they're like a Miata. Like, I don't know.
Some winter tires on.
That's the thing. So I didn't even put winter tires because I couldn't afford them. Again, I was just the kid that like I bought a car that was fast, not that fast, but like I just wanted to. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I was just basically spending every dollar I had to do whatever the hell I wanted instead of thinking about logical decisions I should probably be making.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were in that situation.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, that's just being 21 years old. Not a young kid, but 21 years old and being irresponsible. But yeah, I had all seasons, and I never actually got stuck in that car one time. So, and I did a lot of snow drifting.
Ow.
That car so I don't know if you ever drove in like thick snow before?
Oh yeah.
So
define thick, because that's like, probably different to you.
So we get like a big snowstorm for us is 12 inches and more.
I've never been in anywhere near that.
So it gets rowdy. So actually, like the more snow there is on the ground, the more traction you have. Like to an extent, obviously, because if you're pushing snow, it's not helping.
If it's all packed down, you're just gonna slide all over the place.
Exactly. Or being on ice, like I hate when they plow the snow because then I'd be like, spinning tires everywhere trying to get started. Whereas if there was like fresh powder, it's grippy kind of. So yeah, pretty much you just had to be very strategic about coming up the lights and stopping and like coasting super far back so you didn't have to come to a complete stop, and like it was very strategic.
They gotta go slow in the snow. You gotta keep your momentum up.
That's exactly
faster.
It. Yes, that's exactly it. Keep your braking zones, and that was some interesting rides to work for sure in my car, man.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
And then I decided I'd try to dabble in some autocross. I got a little bit of money to buy some like okay tires, and I did a few autocross events. I didn't really like that because it seemed like I spent most of the day just kind of chasing cones instead of actually driving.
Yeah.
So that kind of just steered me away from autocross. Like, it was cool, the 30 seconds you have in a parking lot going around cones, but like, it wasn't that cool. So
it's a very boring sport to watch.
Agreed.
Honestly.
Terrible
Unless
spectator.
the car is just insanely cool.
Yep.
Nothing you can do about it.
No, not at all. So then I somehow mustered up enough money to buy a daily. I bought a Nissan hardbody truck.
Hell yeah.
And then I decided I was going to try to save up money to turbo my car, which was also another terribly financial decision. So I bought this is actually a really funny story. This is like I'm the worst person you want to have on Marketplace probably message you. So,
oh hell.
This is this kid posted this used turbo kit. I don't know, is that going to be too loud or no? You think you'll hear that?
They should be all right.
Okay. So I messaged this guy selling this whole used turbo kit. Mind you, I didn't really know how to work on cars that well yet.
Yeah.
So like I'm like, oh, this is everything to turbo my car, but really it's not. And
there's always bits and pieces.
Oh yeah. But I'm like, oh, it's a used turbo kit. It's everything. But it wasn't. So I messaged this kid, and I forgot what his asking price was. But I offer him like $500 less, which wasn't that bad of a low ball. But he said no. And then a week goes by. He hits me up. He said, hey, I'll actually take $2,500 or whatever it was. And I was like, I spent the $500 now. All I have is $2,000. And he's like, no, I'm not taking $2,000. So he didn't do it again. 2 more weeks go by. He hits me up. He's like, all right, I'll take $2,000. I absolutely need the money. And I think I told him I only had $1,800. So then I still got another couple $200 off. And he's like, all right, fuck it.
Yeah,
I'll ship it to you or whatever. So then I buy it. So it gets better. And then he pays FedEx to package it and all this insurance stuff. Well, it shows up all, like the box was all fucked and it was missing something stupid, like a blow-off valve or something. So then I was like, hey man, like it's missing this part because I thought I really needed that part. That was the one part I was going to need. Well, FedEx gave me like $300 back on it too. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, because that was like, he put only $300 for the insurance. So then I got money back on top. So I got my first like S2000 turbo kit for like $1,500. And
what a score.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was so stoked about it. And I was like, man, you know, like all excited. And then I start looking through what it is and talking to my buddy. I have a buddy named Andy McPherson who owns a shop by me who's done like most of the tuning on all my cars throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I kind of look up to him like a mentor in a way. He's just always like, he calls me his little brother, but his shop is basically like, you know, I can go there to do anything I need. He's got machine shop stuff and like, he just always has an answer for everything. So I call him up all excited, but hey man, I got the turbo kit. And I tell him what I have. He's like, well, what are you going to do to, you know, buy the ECU and all this other stuff? And I'm like, what do you mean? This is the turbo kit.
What?
Yeah. So I'm like, I got to spend like another $2,000. Like, you know, I'm like, man.
Sorry.
Yeah. So then I finally, again, searching through like Craigslist too, also at the time, because Craigslist was very relevant during that time. Blessed soul.
Right.
I actually miss Craigslist.
I do too. It was a lot easier,
yes,
in my opinion. Now you get too many fucking idiots on Facebook Marketplace.
That's true. I feel like Marketplace makes it easier for people that aren't serious to just window
shop.
Yeah. Whereas Craigslist actually took a little bit of like emailing, kind of, and like searching for the phone number. And like,
yeah.
Like it was a little bit more work. You actually had to call somebody. You couldn't just be like, hey, is this still available? And then crickets.
Automated fucking. Yeah. Fuck you if you send automated messages.
Yeah, I hate that shit. It's the worst. Don't do it.
And if you don't read the description.
Yeah, that too.
That's oh my.
Selling wheels, telling you're only selling 2 wheels, and they said, yeah, I want the full set or whatever. I had somebody do that before where they showed up to try to buy 4 wheels. I'm like, there's no 4 wheels. Didn't even read the listing. They're like, got all shitty with me. You didn't read, bro. Sorry.
It's not my fault you can't open your eyes.
So sorry. Backtracking.
No, you're
going
good.
off topic, but so then I finally end up mustering up the money to buy the cheapest of cheapest parts to get this turbo kit together. And I have the stock motor, mind you. At this time, I think I was putting a ton of miles on it. I had a girlfriend that lived like an hour and a half away, so I was driving back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
And so I got it with 118 or 115,000 miles, and I have about 160,000 on it this time. And this is probably 2 years later, 2 year span only. So I was driving this thing a lot, yeah. And so I put this whole turbo kit on it. Tell my buddy Andy, I'm like, oh, the car's ready. I'm bringing it down. We're going to dyno it, you know. I get there, and it's open downpipe. And he's like, this thing's a 3-cylinder, bro. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, listen to it. I'm like, sounds fine to me. It just sounds like an open downpipe. Like, I don't know. He's like, we're compression testing it. I'm like, all right. So we do a compression test, and sure enough, one hole's down at like 180 PSI. The rest are 240.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and I was like, he's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I didn't spend all this money to take it back apart. Now, yeah. I said, let's tune it.
Oh, fuck.
So, yeah, the car actually did awesome. So, like, stock motor, F22, made 458 horsepower to the wheels on a Mustang dyno, 13 pounds of boost on a 6262, and Like, car actually held up for a whole summer, or a whole year, I should say, because it was towards the end of winter.
No way.
Yeah, it made it through a whole year, and then I blew a ring land apart on one of the... Well, actually, we turned it up because I was like, hey, let's just turn it up. And so we were at 13 pounds. I think we went up to 21 or 23, so it was probably making like maybe 600 horsepower. Jesus. Which, those motors are actually known for holding like good power stock.
Oh, yeah.
But mine was dead, or dying, and this is also my first fast car, so I'm beating the shit out of this thing everywhere. Just nonstop beating on this thing, wanting to race anybody, because I think it's the coolest, fastest thing in the world, you know?
Dude,
like,
I'm sure a lot of people do.
I mean, it is. It's a
cool
quick car. Like, so I live in the, near Detroit, so like it's predominantly all domestic cars. So like you see tons of Hellcats, Corvettes, like all that stuff. Yes. So those are the best people. The bros are the best people to race because they see me in a yellow convertible. My car was yellow at the time. And I'm like, trying to get them to race, and they're like laughing or waving me by. And my car would, like, I remember when the car made 450 horsepower. There's some other viral video of me racing this guy in a Hellcat with the auto. He had an auto. And I beat this Hellcat, and it's funny listening to everybody, like, just listening to people's comments on YouTube. I'm sure you get it, or like reading through them. The shit that people say.
Hilarious.
I was banging off limiter because I was just being like, I don't know. I wasn't that great at shifting, and so I'm like banging off limiter and then shifting like Honda kid shit. And people are like, oh, he's double clutching and saying all this stupid shit. I'm like, I ain't double clutching. I'm wearing steel toe boots, bro. That's why I'm.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. But so yeah, I ended up blowing up the stock motor. Do another built motor. Go down the drag race. This is where I saw my drag racing history kind of comes about. Is then I start getting a little bit more serious, start making more money as I get older, and built a motor. Then I started getting into drag racing and decided I was going to put a Turbo 400 in my car. So,
Speaking of drag racing.
Yeah, don't know if you guys can hear that, but there's some no prep drag racing going on.
I'm sure they can hear a little bit of it.
Oh, yeah.
I got an audio editor, so he edits most of the stuff out, but... and these things, they're so goddamn directional.
Oh, yeah.
But
So then I put a Turbo 400 in my car. I was actually one of the first people to do that. I think there was one other guy, but I did a prototype kit for a company called ATF Speed down in Florida. And calling around trying to find somebody to build a trans for this, because the car is going to rev to 10,000. Well, I was revving the car to 11,000 RPMs at the time. Jesus. So everybody I'd call would be like, yeah, right, Turbo 400 is going to grenade itself. They don't rev that high. I'm like, well, people in monster trucks run like auto. Like, there's got to be somebody that runs these things.
Yeah, someone can do it.
Yeah, so I found this local guy to me. He's like, oh, yeah, no problem. And we put this Turbo 400 together. I get the adapter plate kit from ATF Speed. I do the 488 swap into the rear end of my car because it had a stock diff at the time.
Yeah.
And I put it onto a different ECU, like a nice ECU, big turbo, up pipe out the hood, like this thing's starting to look like a drag car. Buy a set of welds for the rear, like typical drag spec, And I started doing no prep racing. I did quite a bit of like back of the track, no prep stuff, and the car was pretty good. Did that for a couple years. So at the time, I couldn't afford a truck and trailer. So I'd street drive my car to the no prep events.
Fuck.
Yeah, and we have a lot of drag race like stuff by us, so it's like an hour and a half to the track for me. But I'd pack my slicks in the back of the trunk would be open with a slick. Passenger seat would have a slick and all my jack and tools. So like I was straight up real street car stuff back then. And man, I miss like just being able to, I would drive my car everywhere. It was on E, but I would like plan like, I loved going on long drives.
Out.
Yeah, like I loved that. And
what times were you running in that thing?
So the highest time I actually ever put down slip-wise was a 9.2. I think it was 153 miles an hour. But that was on a set of ET Street Rs. So that was not on a set of drag slicks. This was like a whole thing. So I blew up another motor. I accidentally hydro-locked my first time I was going to go racing. But I blew up this motor. This is funny, long story. Yeah, I learned a lot of stuff along the way because of the auto with the S2000. Like, you had to use nitrous. So the car had nitrous, too, to get it on the converter, to even be able to get it on two-step. Because it wouldn't build boost without the nitrous to get the thing actually to spool. So you'd have to hit it with, like, a 100 shot, and then it would come up on the converter, and do, like, the normal two-step.
Yeah.
But it was just a lot of learning stuff throughout the year. So, like, I'd run out I only had one bottle because I didn't have a truck, so I can't carry anything. So it's whatever bottle I bring with me in my trunk. And, there's just a lot of testing. Like, so towards the end of the year, I'm like, we're gonna turn this thing up, 55 pounds of boost on a 6870. We're gonna hit the we're gonna leave the nitrous.
Pounds.
Oh yeah,
holy hell.
That was the thing. Like, I used to be so scared when we first turned it up to like 30 pounds. I'm like, 30 pounds? That's a lot. My tuner, I'd be like,
you don't hear that number very often.
No, I'm like,
okay? Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm like, are you sure 30 pounds okay? And then we started going up in like 35. I'm like, are you sure? And then we got to 40, and then at 40, I was just like, he's like, we're gonna add 5 pounds or 2 pounds, and I'm like, okay.
Do whatever at this point.
Yeah.
This is mesmerizing.
Yeah, I was like, it should blow up by now. Like, so that motor lasted me after I blew up that one during like learning stages. My F22 that I built lasted 2 years at like probably 50 pounds of boost.
Damn, that's loud.
So like 50 pounds of boost, and I had multiple tunes for like the street and the drag race, but as like I kind of got uninterested in my car because I was just kind of over going to the drag strip. My close friend at the time moved away to Georgia that I was drag racing with all the time. So then I didn't have like an import buddy that we'd go to the track every weekend or push each other to get there.
That's fair, yeah.
And so then I just left the car on the drag race tune all the time on 50 pounds of boost on the street, just being dumb, you know?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. And definitely some scary
I'd like to see
instances.
somebody else do that.
Yeah, it's a little
daily your car on 55.
And I would drive it to work. Dude, that was the thing. Like I would, anytime I could drive this thing, I would. And then I just got tired. Like I started getting tired of it. So then I just let it sit in the garage actually for a year. And this is when I started drifting actually. I started drifting in an E46. And that was good chassis, 330, stock power car, had it fully set up. And it was a great car to like learn the ropes in. And I'd say I picked it up pretty quickly. I feel like most people that do extreme sports kind of get the idea of it. They just pick up the hand-eye stuff quicker. And after about a year driving my E46, I felt like I needed more power, which I don't know if I really did, but I came up with this dumb idea that I was going to turbo my BMW. And I was like, okay, you know, turboed a car before. Also, now I work on all my own stuff. I pull transmissions. I can put motors together. I can do all this stuff myself. So I'm way more confident in actually building something that's going to last.
Wow. What are they only running at 8?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
So then I have a friend in New Zealand who drifts an S2000. And he's actually my first friend that I made from working at Link. As soon as I started working there, somehow he found out that I started working there from somebody in the headquarters in New Zealand at Link. Yeah. And he messaged me. He's like, oh, you got an S2000? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I got one too. I'm going to start drifting it. And I'm like, you're dumb. You know, like the typical person, because everybody says they suck. Don't do it. Yeah. And he's like, when are you going to convert yours? And my car's a full-on drag car. I'm like, never. I'm just going to sell this car or whatever, get rid of it. Because I was so over it that I just wanted to get rid of it. And I really wanted an NSX. First gen NSX is like my only car above an S2000 that I like really, really want to own one day.
That's fair.
So like I thought maybe if I sold it, I had it up for sale for a while, had a lot of offers, like cash offers and stuff, but I've owned the car now for 8 years, and it's like at the time still that was 6 years ago. A couple years ago I owned the car for 6 years. It's just hard to get rid of. It's the only car that I've like. It's taught me everything, like working on cars. It taught me everything. Bad times, good times. It was
That's how my Z is, man. I like beforehand, like I dabbled a little bit and kind of knew some stuff about cars, but once you do like your first motor swap and shit, pull your first motor, that's when you really start learning everything about a car. It's crazy, and you gain that confidence. So.
That's the biggest thing was I probably could do a lot of the stuff. I just didn't have the confidence. Like I was scared. I'm like, well, I can take this apart, but what if I don't know how to put it back together, you know?
My biggest thing was I didn't want to lose a bolt.
Yeah.
Fuck that, bro. Throw them all in a pile. Exactly. I'll figure it out when it comes back to it.
Exactly. That used to be my thing when I first started taking cars apart. I'd like have paper towel and then like mark what the bolt's from or whatever. Dude,
put them in bags.
Yeah. I'd bag it. I'd be bagging and tagging. And now it's just like, I know this bolt goes here, this bolt's there. You know, like I took my car apart so much now. And same like on other cars, working on other cars, it's like, you just figure it out. Like, don't be scared to just jump in, and like, the only way to learn is literally to just do it. Like, I'm so glad I had nobody to help me, so I had to do it. And goddamn. And I didn't have the funds to pay somebody to work on my car, so like I could afford to pay somebody to tune it, and that was it. And Andy would help me, like he would help me out, obviously, but like other than that, I had no choice but working on my own stuff, which I feel like a lot of us is that way, you know.
Well, okay, so run me down how you kind of did convert the S2000 into a drift car, because I for sure want to know.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people are curious because
Okay.
I've heard a lot of people talking about wanting to do that. It's a dream of theirs. So.
Oh yeah. So this took a lot of convincing because I thought it was like, I know there's a big stigma around S2000s in general. I feel like in drifting, and I've definitely shut some of that down. I feel like now because my car's got a little bit of publicity on some things.
Yeah.
But everybody always says they're terrible drift cars, so I didn't believe it either when I was trying to be convinced. But I told my buddy, I was like, all right, you help me out with like some of the basic setup stuff. So I got like basic alignment settings because the car does have an electric power steering rack, which a lot of people think you need to get rid of that for it to work good, which is not true at all. I love the electric power steering. It's my favorite thing in the world. You don't overheat power steering pumps. You don't kill them. You don't snap off the shafts.
That is fair, man.
Like,
yeah.
I've never personally had any issues with it. But people like to swap them. My buddy in New Zealand still runs one as well. But the first things I did was, so the car, never went to a solid axle, luckily, because if I would have went to a solid axle, it would have made everything probably a lot harder to make it drive good as far as, it would have been like 4-link style. It might have worked, but not as ideal as having an IRS still set up.
Of course, yeah.
So, first thing I did was, I had a LSD. My car was set up for 8th mile no prep. So I switched the gear ratio because it was set up for only doing about 120 miles an hour. So, man, it gets me every time.
They're ripping, man.
So I started with that, changing that stuff. Obviously, I had to get rid of the Turbo 400 because we wasn't going to drift with an auto. I needed the clutch pedal back in the car. So I sold that, and I put a BMW ZF5 in it, 5-speed manual, which was sweet for the fact of I broke a bunch of S2000 transes, which is why I went to the auto too for the drag racing stuff.
Yeah.
So putting that Turbo 400 in my car, I had to pound the shit out of the tunnel to make it fit, obviously, because it's a massive transmission. So putting this small little BMW trans, I can get to every single bolt super easy all the way around. You know, it's really tiny and compact, and that was awesome. And
that's how I feel with the RB trans, because the CDs are so massive. It's tiny in my trans tunnel.
See, people tried to convince me to do CD instead of the BMW trans, and that was my only problem. Was like, dude, they're so big that
enormous.
I'm usually working on my car by myself, and I'm like, I don't want to have to lift this thing up into the car. Like, I can bench press a ZF. I just did it. I broke a trans at the event last weekend and just had to bench press a ZF into my car. But that's easy. Like, it's super light and small. So it's like, that was convenient. Then I went down to a smaller turbo.
Don't they have the carrying handle, too?
Yeah. No, they actually don't, because they have a shifter linkage. So they have the DSSR that comes off the back. I wish.
I've always thought that was funny.
Yeah, the carrying handles on the S2000 trans has one, and I know all about swapping those. So yeah, too many carrying those. But so then I went to a smaller turbo too, because I had a 6870 precision turbo on the car, and it was way too big for like. I mean, I already knew about tire budget at the time, obviously, because I already drifted an E46. And I didn't want to make 1,000 horsepower anymore also. I wanted the car I was like, oh, if I have this motor that's built for 1,000 horsepower, if I cut that in half and make 500 horsepower, it'll be even more reliable, you know?
Yeah.
And so I put like a 3076 on the car. Worked like perfect turbo for a small motor like that. Spooled super fast, made good power. I made, I'm trying to think of how much power I made. I think 498 or something. I think I made with the F series with the smaller turbos when I switched to the drift setup. Yeah. And I put an exhaust on it because I didn't want everybody's ears to bleed from an open up pipe driving behind them. It's just not the move. And I learned drift etiquette before I started doing all this stuff too. So it's like
good.
Yeah, I didn't want to up pipe.
Learn it.
But it might, you know, I was like, my buddy Andy's primarily drag racing. He's like, oh, you know, leave it. It's gonna psych people out and stuff, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna be that guy. So that was a big thing. I bought an off-the-shelf angle kit, which there's only one that's offered currently.
That's one thing I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
What fucking angle kit? Because I don't know. I didn't know there even was one.
Yeah,
honestly.
So it's angle blocks, basically, with different tie rods and some sleeves. A lot of people, I don't know if they'll know the name, but Chris Jenneret, he was going to drift an S2000 and FD, or did try to qualify a couple times. I don't think he actually ever did a 32 or anything in FD. Yeah. But he has like an off-the-shelf kit called, in a website called Bespoke Motorsports, and he sells a kit. And that was like my only option because my buddy in New Zealand had something totally custom, and it was, I wasn't going to pay the money to do it because my whole theory with all this was like, hey, I have this S2000 that's a drag car. I can dumb it down and actually make money selling these expensive drag parts to dumb the car down. And if I don't like it and it's not good for drifting, well, guess what? I have a 500 horsepower street car that's probably way more fun and not as I don't have to do as much maintenance to drive it around and enjoy it. So I was like, maybe it would make me fall back in love with the car again. And
win-win either way.
Yeah. So I figured it was a win-win situation. And then I put the car together, and I've always hated the yellow. I hated the yellow. I bought the car and it was yellow. Always hated it. So I decided that I was going to paint it. And I painted my car in my garage. First car I ever painted, and it actually came out awesome. I thought it was going to be like a 20-foot job. And my garage is not very nice. But like I did the best prep work I could and everything. And painted this thing with Harbor Freight paint guns. And I did it the right way, I guess you'd say, but I wasn't cleaning the paint guns. I just buy a new one every time. Like, I was like, nice, clean Harbor Freight. Yeah, I was like, fuck that. I was like, $20, you know, I just keep throwing these away. But my garage is so small that I have to do things in batches. So I'm just killing paint guns from like, hey, I got to roll the car out, put these body panels in, base coat, you know. All right, base coat, these panels come out, the next panels go in, like, yeah, it was a lot of paint
guns. Did you go through?
Too many. Towards the end, I was like, I forgot I had a missed a couple things somehow or something happened and I had to buy 2 more. So for the clear and base coat guns, I was buying like the $35 guns, the little bit nicer ones. I was like, I wonder if Harbor Freight will warranty these. So I just took them there and I was like, hey, this one's not spraying that good. They're like, oh yeah, no problem. Just gave me 2 because it was the last 2. I'm like, I don't want to spend another $60, you know, like most of my paint job was these fucking Harbor Freight paint guns. It was like the most costly part.
Holy shit.
But the car actually came out awesome. I painted it Midori green because I'm a OG, like I'm a Honda kid at heart through and through. Hondas are my first love.
I love that color.
Yeah, they're my favorite. I love everything. Like I love all cars, but Hondas. That was my problem with the BMW. I'm like, I never was a BMW kid before. Yeah. My buddy Dylan, who influenced me, and Corey, influenced me to do a BMW. Because they're like, oh, they never break and blah, blah, blah. But all I did was break my car. So I was like, oh, Honda's reliable. My car's is, you know, it's going to be perfect. And last year, like, I took the car. Actually, so my first time I debuted the car was I came out to here for just a fun event. Mm-hmm. And I did, like, a photo shoot out here. And I drove the car and just did a couple laps in, like, the oval out here. I'm like, this car works good. Like, it felt awesome compared to my E46. I'm like, the power.
What's the wheelbase on those?
So it's only 3 inches longer than a Miata. So it's actually not as small as you would think. Huh. So I think an FRS has a similar wheelbase. It might only be an inch shorter than like an FRS or something. Yeah, so people count them out and say they're too short of a wheelbase car, but they're actually really not that bad.
It's just because the rear end is so short.
That is. So think about Corvettes now. You know, Corvettes have it's like a sports, it's a roadster type car. And that was the weirdest part actually getting used to drifting it was that I sat so far back now. And so when I would be on a wall, I would be.
That's what Josiah says about the Corvette weird. And stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you literally feel like you're sitting over the rear tire.
Correct. And like another thing that I had to get used to learning how to drive was I would think I had a bunch of angle, but I didn't because it was just, it was just that feeling of sitting over the rear tires would feel like you're extra sideways, but you really aren't because you're sitting so far back. It felt like that. But,
wait, speaking of, how much angle does that kit make?
I've never measured it. I'd probably guess around 60-ish degrees, 63 degrees. So it's not bad for like angle blocks. Yeah. I'm actually have a prototype kit that I don't know if I'm allowed to say anything yet from a different company. They put something together for me, like full custom kit. Talking to him about trying to switch to something more serious because I've been starting to do competition stuff and trying to just make the car drive better and better. And, you know, I don't have the skill set to build an angle kit, and they do. So he offered, and I've been slacking.
What's your opinion on FDF? I love it.
So I hear so many mixed things, obviously, just like, I feel like there's so much missed information or people not actually maintaining their stuff. Like nut and bolt check, in my opinion, is like because I hear stuff, people say they come loose, but I feel like a lot of people that don't actually nut and bolt check their car. Whether they say they do or not, I rarely see people nut and bolt check their car.
Every angle kit's going to come, bolts are going to come loose. You got to do the bolt check. That's it.
They're Heim joints, and it's all solid mounted or spherical stuff. Like, so it's going to shake loose.
And most of it's like the offset rack spacers that people complain about, I feel like.
Yep. So, mine's...
Keep that tight, and it doesn't
don't have issues.
It's just crazy.
So mine's just a full custom upper, full custom lower, and then tie rod setup. But I'm really excited to get that on. It should have more angle, and the one thing I don't like about my current kit is I can't run very cool wheel spec, which I like. The aesthetics to me is very important in drifting. That's like part of it, you know.
Yes.
The car's got to look cool. Like you can't drive good without looking good.
Yeah,
This sounds bad,
exactly.
but it's like I feel like I drive better if my car looks good, and it'll look good driving. If I'm driving good and the car looks good.
Yeah, you feel better when your car looks
Yeah, you
good.
do. That's like, I don't know. That's like an old dirt bike quote, you know, or something. But I love it. I mean, I don't know. That was my other thing. My E46 wasn't very cool. The S2000, I knew I could make like real hot boy or whatever you want to call it. So that's where I did like the 3-piece wheels when I first brought it out, wide fenders and like wide body, and all that stuff was like cool. And I knew it was going to be really cool because nobody does them. So like I could mix and match like panels, and like nobody makes anything drift specific except I started making. So my buddy and Alex in New Zealand and we have a dual caliper setup that we made for our cars. So,
no way.
Yeah, because I wanted to have a good handbrake. I don't like inline, even though a lot of people love inline handbrakes.
I'm not big on inline.
I'm not a big fan either. I had one in my E46 and left foot braking with it. Like sometimes, not that you left foot brake handbraking that much, but like I, in some instances, would do that, and I didn't like how it'd feel. So I went to a dual caliper on that car, and then I just made sure I wanted to have a dual caliper on this car too. Just so, and it's just it feels better to me. So we did that. Other than that, man, it's just like a really simple setup. Like, it blows my mind that people say they're so bad for drifting because I literally have some angle blocks off the shelf, some adjustable upper control arms, adjustable rear upper control arms. Like, it's nothing crazy. And like, people say that they're bad for drifting. The one other thing that I do, actually, now that I think about it, so the electric power steering. Okay. There's a downfall with it because it has variable speed assist. So it changes with how fast you go. So obviously, wheel speed wise, that can make steering feel really weird.
Stuff up, yeah.
Yeah, so I have mine controlled with my Link. So I can actually control the amount of assist. So I basically send signals to the box and tell it that it's seeing this speed. So I can make it consistent, though. So I can have the steering feel consistent with this much assist or this little assist. And I haven't played with it too much. I pretty much set it, and it felt like good for me. Yeah. So that was like the one other thing that probably messes people up driving stock cars is that variable assist, the steering feeling changing constantly. Yeah. But the cars drive awesome. Like, I'm not gonna say go out and buy one because they're really expensive, and I bought mine for.
Would you say that's the only reason you would tell someone not to build it for drifting?
Yeah,
because of the price.
Yeah, if you have one or you have a clapped out one or rebuilt title one, and you want to do something dumb with it like me,
I feel like parts and stuff are still. That part's cheap because it's a Honda.
Yeah, that's
the initial
thing.
price of the car.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, the F series is expensive, the motor. So like, I have a K swap in my car now, K24. Yeah. And the only reason I never swapped early was just because I had so many F series parts from drag racing. I just buy the cheapest stuff when I'd see it on Marketplace. Or like, I would just because I stockpile
scrounge it up.
Yeah, literally, because I knew that I'd need it later. So I'd do that. But then I switched to a K series just because I can find, like, I started traveling far for drifting. I'd go to US Air's 8.5 hours. And it's like, if I just lose an alternator here, I'm done for the weekend. Whereas a K series, I can go to any junkyard, any whatever. But yeah, overall, like, drifting S2000 is not that expensive. It's just the initial purchase price of the car makes it obviously unappealing for a drift chassis. Of course. But they drive great.
There's nothing like, I guess, any fabrication or anything you had to do to the car for drifting?
No, honestly, like,
it's just literally that simple.
Yeah, angle blocks off the shelf, my dual caliper kit.
Damn, man.
That's controlling so my buddy Alex in New Zealand didn't control the power steering rack until this year. He just drove with it how it was. So like, it's totally possible. And his car is turbo. His car is actually probably a little more serious than mine. It's quick change, sequential. Like, his car is serious. And he tells me I'm a better driver than him, but he drives in D1NZ. He's a ripper. Yeah. So he's been inspiring, but we're always pushing each other. He's like, trying to get each other to keep going better. And the dream is one day that he's going to either come over here with his car and we're going to actually drive some like S2000 tandem laps together. Yes. So like, it'd be legit. It'd be really cool.
Dreams.
Yeah. But I've been seeing, like, since I did my car and obviously the more stuff, like, because people always get stoked on it. People, God damn. People just, like, I think seeing me doing it kind of has gotten rid of a lot of that, like, the stuff that people would say, like, oh, S2000s are bad drift chassis. I'm sure you've heard it.
Yeah.
Like, because people are like, why don't you drift an S2000? You know, and like people are just like, it's bad drift chassis. And I was told that a lot when I had this idea of doing this. I was told this a lot, especially from some of my like actual friends too. But my close friends were like, dude, do it. That's gonna be so sick if it works.
Yeah, I love to see the oddball stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's
I'm
cool.
Here for it. Yeah.
It's different. Like it's cool. I always love seeing weird like cool cars or like the story on like the G body. I know there's a guy that drifted a G body at my local track by me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
sweet as hell.
Yeah.
Like I just like seeing different stuff than like the normal cars with the same body kits. Like I don't know. I still like that stuff, but like it's always cool to
I'll
see.
always look at a 240 or something with a big kit and everything, you know, of course. But
It's cool.
dude, when you see somebody makeshift something together in their shop, their little tiny garage,
Oh, yeah.
and it looks cool as fuck,
Oh yeah.
dude, there's just nothing beats that to me.
No, it really doesn't.
Well, I wanted to bring up, you just came off of a weekend out at the Touge event.
Yep.
The Drift Indy Touge event. How was that? I meant to go, but I just
Scary.
had to work.
It was scary.
It looks like
It was scary. Is that honestly like it was nuts. So like it's like third gear in my car, which is like 114 miles an hour wheel speed. So like
shit.
we weren't doing that, but on my like GPS data on my GoPro and stuff, it says we're doing like 70 to 75 on entry, and just the corners going uphill and downhill, and then like average speed through the corners is like mid 50s to low 60s.
Wow.
Yeah, it was committed.
That's fast.
It was committed. So like doing the first
I'll
sight
put
lap.
some clips in of the actual event. Holy shit.
Yeah.
The media coming out of it is wild.
Oh yeah.
It looks gnarly.
Dude, that was another thing. Is like I remember doing the sight lap and just seeing all the media vests, because this is in the mountains, mind you. Media vests are like all the way up in the sky, like on a mountain cliff, and then down in like a little ravine by like the inner clip area, and it's just like people everywhere.
Dude, that's
like,
that's confusing. Okay, so how did they actually run that event then?
So the way they did it was basically we had groups of 10. There was only I think 30 of us selected. It was a very special select event because it was the first time I ever did anything like this.
Yeah.
I know they want to do more stuff like this in the future, but so there was groups of 10 of us. Basically, we'd group up with our 10 buddies or whatever that we wanted to be driving with, and they would have also like a normal civilian vehicle in the front to basically clear like a pace vehicle sort of, and they would send us all at once, and like you'd space yourself kind of out. Because obviously you don't want to be drifting and not be able to see the person in front of you, because it's all blind corners mostly.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to see what's going on in front of you. And then we'd have a car at the back clearing us. Like, you know, it's another civilian car. So we'd go 10 up, and then we'd come down, and then the next group of 10 would go up.
Okay, so you didn't have to, it wasn't like circle back.
No.
around,
We were
like
doing
that.
literally uphill, downhill, like a Seto style.
Oh my god, dude,
Yeah.
that's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. The downhill.
Wait,
is
so
actually,
you okay, wait, hold on. So drifting downhill, correct?
Yep.
Drifting back uphill?
So we started on the downhill. We'd go up first and down second.
Oh, wow. Does that not throw you off?
Oh,
Having
yeah.
to go flip back and forth, you're like, oh, fuck, I was going this way.
It kind of, so that was the thing, because we did one sight lap before we really started like, all right, let's do it, you know? So we do,
Oh,
I remember on my sight lap, I'm like, looking around, looking at the corners.
There's a lot of rocks around here,
Dude,
man.
yeah, I'm
A
like,
lot
what did
of
I
cliffs.
sign myself up for? I'm like, this is nuts. I feel like I just got drafted to the war. You know, like we're all going through something traumatic together right now. Me and the homies, you know, I feel like we just got sent off to war.
Jesus Christ.
But like, this is obviously it's like the dream. Everybody, you know, and I see the comments people leaving and stuff saying like, oh, I wish I could do that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, like, there's a lot of
Think
good,
twice.
yeah, there's a
Dude.
lot of good drivers there that I know that were there. And I think it humbled a lot of people. Like,
Yeah.
people thought they were going to do it and they got there and they're like, it's a lot, man. Like, it's the problem with it is, with something like that, you have to be committed soon as you enter. Because if you're half committed, that's when the mistakes get to happen, because there's no room for error there.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you have to be completely committed, on point, going through it. And the downhill section was the scariest for me, because it's like, where you would think you would come off throttle normally in a corner, you would have to come off throttle earlier, because you would just naturally want to float. And they're cambered. Like, the corners were all cambered, and like, yeah, that was the most problems we've seen were, I don't think there was any crashes on the uphill. Everything was downhill. Like, just people, I think, you know, misjudging speed coming in.
Of course.
But it was
I
literally
saw one
gnarly.
BMW that, like, he got a little squirrely coming down a downhill section, and then he cut it really tight to the inside, and then closed it. Oh, that made my butt pucker just fucking watching that one. But was the road really grippy or anything, or was it pretty slick?
I would say actually it was decently grippy. I aired up because I just wanted the car to be loose to make it be easy to be able to slide. But it actually, like on a set of Kendas, like the road didn't feel numb. Like it felt, you could feel what was going on pretty easily. And like, yeah, that was wild, man. Like the whole thing that will always stick in my head is I remember sitting there, like, you know, because they would have the next 10 cars grouped up ready to go at the bottom of the hill waiting for the 10 cars to come back. Be watching, and like you'd count like 1, 2, 3, 4, and there'd be no car. And you're like, fuck, who is it? You know, like, what happened? Yeah. And that was the worst feeling every time, like, because everybody cares about everybody in the drifting community, I feel like, man.
Yeah,
and like, it's just a terrible feeling watching 10 cars go up, but only 6 come back, you know, or something, you know. It was just a weird feeling, but like, crazy.
So did anyone like fatally destroy their car?
Honestly,
what was the worst wreck?
Somebody like moved the back end of a G35 over pretty good, but like everybody drove back down the hill. Like, shit. Which is crazy because I seen some pictures and some of the crashes, like, definitely probably shouldn't have been able to, but like most people's cars got out like very, very lucky. Like my homie Dylan, he was falling, so he was behind me on our very first actual drifting lap. And this is my buddy with the Turbo E46, Dylan Lobostall. Some of you people might know him. And he's a good driver. And he's following me up the uphill stuff because he trusts me, too. He knows that I have a good idea what we're doing. So he's going to trust my speed and everything. And we start coming down the downhill section. And I'm cooking because I don't really know what speed I need to go yet. So I'm scrubbing a ton of speed, but he doesn't know that. He's just coming in slightly behind me with my speed and just washed right off. Like first lap on the downhill and backed his car into the wall. But he got so lucky. It just literally... like bent his exhaust, ripped his bumper off, and he backed it into like a ravine with his 2 tires up.
Did anyone get close to like guardrail flipping or?
No guardrail flipping. Somebody did hit a guardrail, but like honestly,
how hard could it be?
Yeah,
you're not going too fast.
Well, yeah, some of the people were just also drifting only a few corners, you know.
That's
like,
fair. Okay.
But to do the whole section, you had to be committed from turn 1 because you had to have the momentum to drag everything out, like.
How long of a road was it that you got to actually drift?
I think it was a half a mile.
Oh, okay. That's
so, like, not super huge, but, like...
Let's say you'd probably get worn the fuck out by the end of it.
Oh, dude, the adrenaline. The adrenaline from it is literally just nuts. Like, we were allowed to tandem, too, but, like, I mean, we weren't really tandem. We were more, like, car, like, a little bit of space, kind of tandem, but, like, not really. And then I broke my car halfway through the day, so, like... I think we would have probably, because people were getting spicy, like our group was getting spicy, but
comfortable with it.
Yeah, just way she goes sometimes. I'm just glad I got to experience it because the day before I broke a knuckle at the competition and somehow sourced a knuckle in the middle of nowhere in Tennessee and drove 2 hours to go pick one up so I could drive the Touge because that was I knew it was gonna be a bucket list thing, and I think still like after this whole event, it feels so surreal that we even did it, and I think it's gonna be really hard to ever match. Like something that wild.
Top that one.
Yeah, and I think that like going on in the future, I don't think they're gonna do as faster roads because it was gnarly. It was not for the faint of heart.
I heard someone say that they really enjoyed it and the town loved it and they want to keep doing it. And then they have better roads apparently that it could even be done on. So I was like, oh fuck, here we go. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah. It was crazy, like the whole experience. So like, I don't know, a lot of people probably don't know about Street League, but it's probably like one of the bigger things in the Midwest. It's basically like a 245 small tire type shootout. It's like street cars, but it's mostly based on styling. You gotta have a good looking car, like that's in the tech. So it, like that's the cool part about it is all the cars look cool, so every battle like looks super cool.
Yeah.
But it was the first time we went to Corbin, Kentucky, and we did like a whole police escort to downtown, and like it was like a parade, man. Like the people were waving, like they're so excited because they haven't like they don't see stuff like this.
Yeah.
And like we go to downtown, like the main street, and like park all our cars, and there's tons of like spectators, and they're like so stoked about it. And it was the coolest. Like I'm a nobody, and it made me feel like I was like special. You know? It was like a good feeling, and I think everybody kind of had that feeling. Like it just made you feel warm and fuzzy inside. Like all this time in the garage. All this time and like money spent and all the effort and like I mean it was an 8-hour drive for me just one way to get there, and it's just like it's a lot of stuff, and most people don't appreciate that. You just do it for yourself. And, like, that made me kind of feel like, man, maybe this is, like, not that I'm doing it for anybody else, but I'm like, maybe this is kind of, like, worth
something
it.
From
yeah,
it
felt good.
Yeah.
It was a good feeling. It was a really cool experience, man. I can't wait to go back because I'm pretty sure we're going to go back because everybody just loved it. Like, I gave one of the Kentucky congressmen a ride along. Like,
fuck,
he was so
dude,
stoked.
That's sick.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was the most ride-alongs I gave ever, probably in my car. And everybody was just like, it was congressmen, people that own like the stadium that we were drifting at in the parking lot. Like, everybody was so stoked on it because they're like, oh, you know, we don't know what to expect. Like, they're telling us all this. And then they're like, this is crazy. You guys are awesome. You know, and like, luckily we're all respectful and nice to the lot. And like, I'm pretty sure we're coming back. Like, I hope.
Where did y'all pit at?
So it's a giant, so basically imagine like an arena for like a concert or something. Okay. So like we'd parked all of our rigs on one side, or you're saying for the Touge stuff?
For the Touge.
Okay, so for the Touge, no, sorry, I'm going back and forth. So for the Touge stuff, we had like a set lot that, because there wasn't a ton of us, so we basically had 3 lots taken over with our stuff, and we'd just have to sit in our area, which was all kind of spread out, and then somebody would just radio in and be like, hey, your guys' group, and you'd go up. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And they brought in a food truck, one of the local food trucks, for us into one of the lots, so everybody got to support the local food lady, and her food was awesome. It was a banger. So that was also like a cool thing, just giving back to the community. So they appreciated that, you know? Yeah. So like nobody went anywhere else to get food. Everybody literally bought food at that food truck, supported that lady. I'm sure helped her out because there was a lot of us, and we all eat a ton, you know? We're drifters.
Yeah. Right. All right, so I've been talking about how I need an ECU forever, but you worked for Link, so tell me how you kind of came across that job opportunity and started working with Link.
So actually a pretty weird story. At the time, I was working for a company called Mahindra, which they're known for building a lot of tractors. But what I was specifically doing was prototype stuff called these Mahindra Roxers, and they're basically like old Willys Jeep replicas, but they're not a passenger vehicle. They're like for UTV purposes.
Oh, cool.
So I was doing like assembling those, and somebody recommended me to somebody, one of our tech guys now, recommended me for a job to them because they were looking for a sales guy.
Yeah.
And my name got brought up because a lot of people think I'm very personable and I talk a lot and I'm friendly.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Fair enough. You know, and so like, and a lot of people like, I'm just very personable. So I got recommended for a job, did a phone interview with my now current boss, and then I actually got the job. So like, it was a long process. I kind of gave up on thinking I was gonna get the job because it ended up taking like 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like a, hey, you know, we'll check back in type thing because they weren't sure what they were gonna do or how this is like kind of when we first started becoming more prevalent and being our own entity in the U.S. because our company is based out of New Zealand, but we have a lot of subsidiaries all across the globe. So our U.S. subsidiary is pretty young at the time, and they weren't sure if they actually wanted to hire somebody or not. So,
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so I kind of lost faith. I'm like, I'm not getting the job. Like, it's too good to believe.
Whatever.
Yeah,
so what?
I was like, it's too good to be true, you know?
Yeah.
My luck doesn't work out like that. But I did get the job, and now here I am, like, I think it's 5 years later, and I do a lot of different stuff, man. Like, I love my job to death. There's definitely...
Personally, I've always loved Link. Just the way they embed themselves in not only just like social media and stuff, YouTube, all that, but a lot of grassroots drivers. It seems more grassroots than almost bigger names, because bigger names, it's really just a logo on the side of the car. There's nothing really being said about it. So.
Yeah, that was kind of like... That was a really cool thing about when I got hired. Being at Link is like a family. Yeah. Like, it feels like a second family, which, I mean, usually you say that with your friends, which I agree. My friends the same way, but, like, working at Link feels like I work with a family of my homies. So, like,
That's awesome.
It's a really cool thing. And, like I said, there's not one day that I'm not thankful for my job. Like, I love everything I do. I love all the people I meet. I love all the things I get to do and all the opportunities. Like, it's changed my life 100%.
So what's like a typical day job for you then? What do you do on a daily basis?
So my actual job title is I do all the North and South American, or no, not South American, North American sales and dealer accounts. So we don't sell directly to anybody. You have to buy it from a certified dealer.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
deal with all those accounts, like say bigger companies that buy our product and sell it to end users is what we call it. But responding to emails, I also do a lot of marketing stuff and sponsorship stuff. So like if you send your sponsorship stuff on the website, I'm going to be the one that reads it.
Yeah.
So make it something cool. Make it stick out. Just don't do the typical like link's the best thing in the world type responses. Like
I do video proposals.
videos, dude, video is awesome actually. I don't see it very often, but video stuff is very good because I like visual stuff. Visual stuff, like something that you can actually sit down and watch and be like, this is a very well put together piece. Like this person actually cares about this proposal and they probably will offer something back in return for the company.
Yeah.
So like
Exactly.
I do a lot of different stuff, but mostly sales, marketing, dealer accounts managing is my normal day-to-day stuff. So, or like people calling in, finding out, hey, what ECU fits my car the best? And, you know, like, so I do a little bit of everything though. Like I have
Did it with me. For my dumbass thought it was the Neo ECU.
Yeah.
He was like, no, buddy, you need this one.
Yeah. I do that. That's the thing though. It's just like, there's some things that are really easy to get confused, and I'm basically the guy that just points you in the right direction, you know, and steers you to the right thing to make sure you don't buy things twice.
Yeah.
So I try to help everybody save money, you know, that like we're not trying to make obviously a fortune off our stuff. Our products are very well competitively priced, and I just want everybody to have the best experience with the product, and the most easy to use product is the most important thing to me, because I know nothing more frustrating than opening something and having to read instructions and actually like struggling to figure it out. So being able to just plug it in, it works. That's like the most important thing in my opinion.
Oh, of course.
And reliability, obviously.
Yeah.
Can't have that.
So what if you could give your like sales pitch almost on why Link would be better than its competitors or whatever? Or would you even, I guess,
I would
say it compares to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously all ECUs, they function. They all do very similar things. There's certain things that set them apart from other ECU companies. One of the big things being reliability. I don't know, a lot of people back in the day have probably experienced with some ECUs, like ECUs showing up not working on arrival. So we have a ton of pride in making sure our product works. So like we have some crazy QC tests to make sure that we have the normal QC test for the place that builds our ECUs, and then we have an additional QC test that we test these ECUs in this burn-in tester is what we call it. And it fully functions all the outputs and inputs at full capacity, and then it's a temperature controlled thing, so it'll go down to negative 32 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes or whatever with all these running at full capacity, and then up to like 180 degrees with all the stuff at full capacity. Yeah, and then that's our QC test after already our manufacturer's QC test. So like we have a very small failure rate, and because we know how frustrating that is. You spend a bunch of money, something shows up, and it doesn't work out of the box.
Yeah.
Like it's also not a great look. So like we take a lot of pride in that, and customer service. Like I go probably way too far above and beyond, but that's just who I am. Like I respond, like if I was to get a message right now on whatever it may be, social media, obviously being at Link for now, a lot of people know me as the Link guy. So like I feel bad
directly and stuff.
Yeah, so people will message me, and like sure right now I'm technically not working because it's whatever time at night, 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. at night, but I respond because I'm just the guy I am. I always respond no matter what time.
As long as
like I love helping people. That's probably why I would say I'm pretty good at my job, is because I just really enjoy helping people and getting that satisfaction out of them to enjoy something. So it's the helping somebody thing that like I guess gets me going.
That's the drifting world, though.
It is.
It just seems that way.
It really is. The drifting world is awesome, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So why would you say because I have a lot of newer viewers, I'm sure you know that, but why would you say that someone would most definitely want to go standalone over any other type of ECU?
So the biggest thing when switching from like a standalone, we'll say like a flash tuner or something, going to a standalone like a Link gives you so many safety features to make sure that you're not going to blow up your expensive motor, like having an SR20 or something. You don't want to blow that thing up, you know? You want to have oil pressure safety or fuel pressure safety, or all these safeties prevent you from costing yourself more money. Sure, a standalone's expensive, I think it's very well, like fairly priced competitively for what you get. There's so many features and safeties. But I think the investment in buying an ECU is a long-term investment, obviously. This might not be something that helps you right away if you have just like a very simple setup. but it's something that could save you thousands of dollars later down the road.
Yeah.
So like just some of the functionality too, like with flash tuners, you're not going to have some of the motorsport features and stuff that we, like an ECU like Link would have. The flexibility with the software to be able to come up with some crazy ideas to like, well, we have somebody I know just recently that made it so their ethanol content sensor would make their RPM gauge go to whatever percent. So say it was 8,000 RPMs on their thing, so that'd be 80% ethanol content, and they could just do that by turning the key on, and then it would sweep to whatever percentage it would have. So you could, if they didn't have like a display unit, that's what they would use.
No shit.
Yeah, so you, like the flexibility with our software is absolutely insane, and things you can come up with to do. Like it's endless, honestly.
Wow,
and,
okay.
And we're always willing to, like, if somebody has some type of request for features or something, like we're always all ears.
Yeah.
You know, like we don't have a stick up our ass or anything like that. Like we listen. We love the community. Like, that's why we support the grassroots community so much. Because if it wasn't for grassroots,
that's where it all starts, man.
Yeah, man. Like
that's everyone that's spending the money.
Exactly. Like, and that's the people that are really down in the trenches, like using this stuff. Like,
yeah.
You know, I don't know.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Don't find that, I would say, very often in motorsports companies. I like that we see it a lot in drifting specific companies. Well, how did you kind of get into working with Riverside? I guess, do you technically work for Riverside?
So I don't technically work for Riverside. We just sponsor the event. But I do look at Ryan as like a friend now, because I originally came down here 2 years ago to check out basically our marketing investment, because we sponsored Riverside as before the 50K and the big payout series stuff. We just sponsored them as a grassroots series, because that's what we were into, is helping out the grassroots series. So I came down here kind of just to check it out, because nobody had been out here before. And honestly, the facility, I just seen the potential and what we could do here. And it's so hard to talk every time with that thing.
We're at a racetrack. Sorry.
So yeah, I just seen the potential of what could possibly be done with the crew that Ryan had and the facility. So that's kind of, we started spitballing ideas. And things kind of came to fruition, and that's how we came up with the 50K stuff. So then me coming down here, making multiple trips, obviously, because it took a lot of planning to make stuff like this happen.
Yeah.
Me and Ryan just became friends, or, you know, more than just business asides. And I try to help out as much as I can. Obviously, I'm here to represent Link, but I'm also here to make sure Riverside does a fantastic job and help them out. Yeah. Anything that can help them.
Helps on both parts.
Exactly. And it feels like, you know, like I'm judging this weekend, and I just want to be able to, I like help giving back to the community myself. Like I said, I like being able to help. So like any way I can help or make people have a good time, like that's what I try to do.
Of course. Yeah. So do you think that I would say drifting's growing quite exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a lot of these bigger payout events coming into fruition, or do you kind of see them withering away and keeping more grassroots involved?
So I think it's kind of a weird time, because I think if you asked me this question last year, I would say I think these bigger events were kind of popping up everywhere, which like there was these shootout events, clutch kickers obviously was going on. That was causing a lot of noise. But now a lot of stuff seems like it's kind of faded out. I don't know what the future holds for these events, but I know a lot of people, it seems like, are starting to enjoy like the smaller tire stuff, because the pro cars, the one thing I've noticed with being at an event like this, or trying to get drivers to sign up for an event like this, is a lot of people don't want to show up because Adam LZ or somebody's showing
up. They don't
up.
want to get their ass handed to them.
Exactly.
Or be the one that fucking runs into their car.
Correct.
Yeah,
so that's like, I think the first time we started doing these, a lot of people did want to sign up because they're like, I get to drive with this person. Yeah. But then once they realized how serious this level of driving is, kind of scared a lot of people away. So like, I think that there's two separate markets in this. So there's like FD, obviously, and then there's like these open grassroots shootouts, which are basically no rules, Wild Wild West style kind of in a way. And that's open to everybody. But I then also think there's these smaller series that are like street legal, smaller tire, more for the real grassroots guy, I would say, because some of the open events like this, in my opinion, almost isn't even grassroots anymore. Like a lot of these cars are basically pro cars.
These are rowdy cars.
Yeah, they're serious cars.
That's one thing that I honestly I hate to see that too, because that just means that these type of events are going to start, I would say, withering away. That's why I wanted to ask. But I feel like if there was more regulations to it, I guess it could work.
Yeah.
But there's also got to be that incentive for spectators, like
Correct.
the way Grid Life does it.
Yep.
It's basically
The
just
experience.
yeah. You get a whole different experience other than just cars while you're there.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bundle package is what you really need. Because, like, drifting on its own is getting big, but at the same time, it's still hard to sell to the average person. They don't really know what drifting is, I feel like. You go to a gas station, it's becoming more more prevalent. Is like somebody will be like, oh, that's a drift car. Like, point at my car. I'm like, yeah, that is a drift car.
Dude.
But like
a couple years ago, people were like, what is drifting? What the fuck is that?
Yep, exactly.
Like the Fast and Furious stuff?
Yep.
That's exactly how the conversation would go.
The problem is now is all this takeover stuff is also getting huge. So they think that's drifting. So it's kind of also like tainting the average civilian about what drifting is. So trying to get them to an event, like Grid Life does a great job of doing the concert and road racing and has all these different aspects. You know, it's a full festival.
Yeah.
And that brings in so many different demographics that then they have to kind of watch drifting and they're like, this is really entertaining. Like, I feel like the average person, you sit them down out here in the spectator stand. They know nothing about it. And then they watch us and they're, I'll sit here all day and watch this. It's very entertaining. You know, they might not understand what's going on, but man, it's extremely entertaining.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that fine balance of like payout events, because obviously as a driver, myself included, I would love to win a lot of money every time I went to a competition, you know, but at the same time, the ROI, like looking from a company side, might not always be sustainable. Like for the driver, it might be a great thing. You might get to drive with these great people, but for these, there has to be sponsors involved with events like this. You can't just front the money, you know. It's a hard ecosystem. It's a really good question, honestly, because I think right now it's an interesting time for shootout series, you know.
Yeah, well, especially economically. I mean, just everyone's broke.
Yep.
Dude. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that are pissed that they can't be here.
Yep.
Just because they couldn't afford the simple spectator ticket.
Yep.
And I fucking hate that, man.
Oh yeah.
Without getting into politics. God. There's some times where I want to fucking scream about politics on this podcast, but
it's the world we live in.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that there was anywhere that, let's say, Ryan could have improved on in this series this year?
I think a lot of things we thought were good ideas that probably could have been changed was we did a New Jersey event this year. We did 2 50Ks this year. So we did one in New Jersey. We thought it would be good because it was right after Englishtown, so we thought we'd pull a lot of the Formula Drift drivers.
People,
But the problem with that was there was already too many events kind of. It was oversaturated because there was the LZ World Tour event, then there was FD, and then there was the Riverside event. So it kind of already was like, as a spectator, we didn't really think about this, I think, at the time, but as a spectator, you already probably took off your work to go see one of those other events already.
Yep.
So that was kind of a bummer. It was also 4th of July weekend, which we didn't think about. You know, we're like, drifters are die hard. They're going to show up. Which we had great drivers, just spectators wasn't as many. And then with this weekend, we originally had this scheduled in May. And there was some date changes with some other events. And I think Hyperfest ended up getting rescheduled to the same day that this was on. So it was pulling a lot of drivers too, and like sponsorship priorities for other drivers to go to certain locations. So we decided to reschedule it. And now I think it's just kind of late in the year where people's cars are already broke or money's kind of getting thin, you know.
Yeah.
And the economy, like you said, it's not getting any easier right now. It's getting worse. So
worse
I think
worse.
That's kind of part of it. I think a lot of the important part is just scheduling around events like these, is making sure that there's no conflicting things to get as many good drivers as you can out here. And the marketing aspect of it obviously is huge. Yeah. I think the marketing aspect.
It's almost like event hosts, I guess, need to honestly team up in a sense. That way there's not so many people trying to host all these events. I mean, of course, you want to be that guy up top that's handling everything. I'm sure everyone would, but it's just becomes too much of a spaghetti nest.
It's oversaturated.
It's the drift community.
That's one of the things that's kind of, I think, going to become a problem, is that drifting is getting so big and it's becoming so oversaturated with different like venues and places. Before you only had one place you could probably go every month or something. Now every single weekend there's multiple drift events probably within 8 hours, 10 hours of use.
Oh, yeah.
Anywhere you're at in America almost, unless you're in some podunk area. But like generally you have a lot of choices for where you want to go drive. And that's also, it's good and a bad thing. Like it's good that you can go drive wherever you want, but it's a bad thing because it's taking money from, it makes it so only the strongest organizations survive, where if they all teamed up together, it would be better, I think, essentially. And
now that we have oversaturated the drift events, I feel like enthusiasm or FOMO, really. That's the way I would explain it.
Yep.
The fear of missing out on an event isn't there anymore.
I agree, because there's just always another event.
Yeah.
Next weekend.
Like, fuck it, I'll catch the next one. Or I've even found myself in scenarios where I'm like, this track's pretty cool. This one's definitely better. It costs $100 more.
But it's worth it.
But wait, how many people are going to this one? Who's going to
who's going to drive this one?
So many fucking questions. And then, that's what needs to we need to find a breaking point to keep that from happening. But
like a fine line. It's funny because I get told I have FOMO, but opposite way, where I do have FOMO, not opposite way, but I just always want to go, like I don't want to miss out on anything. Like, I don't know. One of my favorite things that I've experienced this year that's really cool about drifting, and I think kind of goes unsaid sometimes, is just how many different cultures there really is in drifting. It's nuts. Yeah. Like going to Englishtown, I was out there for 2.5 weeks. Totally different vibe than being out here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like totally different. And then I've gone to, I went on a couple of drift weeks over in the Pacific Northwest. I went on drift week 2 and 3, and seeing like Arizona, Musselman scene, and like Texas, like it's all so different. It's insane. Yep. Like, yeah. Really cool, though.
If you had to choose, where would you say in the country it has the best drift scene?
Oh, man, I'll get axed for this question. I think
I won't put that part in the podcast.
No, I'll answer this question, and I'll stand behind it with pride because I'm a driver there. But I'd say the Midwest is best. Come catch us.
Dude, that's it. I knew it. We literally said, of course, if you ask anyone that question, they're just going to say where they're from.
Yeah. No.
Simple as that.
So I think...
Or where they're used to driving.
I think it would be really cool. Maybe some event promoter could take this idea. But I think it would be really cool if somebody did some type of event that takes, say, the best 5 guys from this organization, the best 5 guys from this organization, the best 5 guys from this organization, and does, like, some type of cool shootout like that. Like, it doesn't even have to be for big money, but, like, that'd be super cool. Like, Final Bout has, like, its kind of cool, like, style thing, but it doesn't even have to be...
fantasy battles.
Yeah, like, it would be sweet. Yeah, it would be really cool, like, to see, or some type of invite system like that. I think it would be a really cool event to do.
Like playoffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
it's basically like a big playoffs for the USA of drifting,
Damn, that's smart.
Yeah,
man.
I've thought about this. Like, I think it would be pretty cool to do something like that.
Well, if you want to do it, Link probably has your back.
Yeah, it definitely would be sweet.
Oh, man. Since you've been kind of in not just the drift scene, but the car scene in general for such a long time, what's something that you've seen change over the years that you absolutely just can't stand?
Burble tunes.
Fuck yeah.
I can't, dude. Oh, man. So we have a thing called the Woodward Dream Cruise, which is considered actually the biggest car show, I think, in the USA, which is in Michigan every year. It's the 3rd weekend of August every year. Crazy. Really massive. So, like, I go down there usually every day the week before because it's just packed with people. But, man, that's like our normal weekend hangout spot. And I'll be riding down there on my Grom or a motorcycle or my car. And anytime anybody sees, like, a car like mine, they're, of course, always trying to do something, like, stupid or trying to race or whatever. And somebody in a Focus ST or, Golf GTI will pull up right next to me and just let off the old throttle and pop, 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 pop. I'm like, I literally will do this. Just a big old thumbs down. I'll be like...
Good. And don't encourage that
no,
shit. Good God.
That's one thing I can't stand. I feel like everybody's always kind of been into noises, but like I feel like back in the day, it definitely just wasn't. Burble tunes weren't really a thing.
No.
You would have like the normal off throttle exhaust popping stuff, but like purposely setting your car up to make noises like that, and it doesn't sound good. Like it's cool when it does it naturally. Like if you have a big power car and you let off throttle and it does something like naturally and like sounds cool. But not when you're like purposely trying to feed this thing more fuel or cut ignition timing to make it sound.
Dude, my old VR6 that I had it straight pipe, dude. Whenever you let off, man, that shit sounds amazing.
Hey, VR6
burbles a little bit.
Oh yeah, VR6 unspoken, one of the awesomest motors. I love that motor.
I want to convert one to a rear wheel drive and put it in something.
There's a guy, I think his name Randy Noah. He's got a VR6 BMW that's turbo.
Familiar.
Yeah, he's from Florida. He's got a turbo VR6 BMW E46 on Link.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, that car sounds wicked. And it's the only one I've never seen anybody do. Dude, they are. That's like I'm a Honda guy through and through. Hondas don't usually sound good, I'll be honest. But VR6 motor is like one of the best sounding motors on the planet, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
I miss that car every fucking day. I've said that so many times. Dude, I miss it, man.
See, I might be biased because my older brother had a Mark III Jetta that I used to ride in when I was a young kid. And I'd be like, this thing sounds cool.
Fuck yeah.
And like, it's still stuck with me to this day, man. I've always liked the sound of VR6s. They're just cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, I was racing a V6 Mustang one day after a late shift at Kmart. Shout out if you still got a Kmart around you, that's crazy.
R.I.P.
Yeah. But no, he was like, dude, it's freezing fucking cold. It was like 20, 30 degrees outside. He was like, you want to go race him? I was like, come on, bro. Let's not do this. And so we go out on the main road, surprisingly, and I let my car warm up for maybe 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Maybe 5. And we go out. We do 3 pulls. The first pull, I smoked him. The second pull, I started to take off, and I spun, and then I heard a loud pop, and it scared the fuck out of me, so I let off. And then I didn't hear anything weird going on, so I ran him again, and I beat him again on the third one. And then once I got parked, I went back under my car. Dude literally just blew apart the muffler. Just completely blew a hole in it. It was like frayed out and shit. Yeah. It was hilarious.
Like a bomb went off
in it. Yeah. And they just rip off from the back, so I just yanked it off.
Oh, yeah.
And left it straight pipe from there on.
It was probably a good thing because they sound good.
It sounds amazing.
You bless the world.
Yeah. I think the muffler was like gutted a little bit beforehand.
Yeah.
Or messed with, or it already had small
Maybe
hole.
it gutted
itself. It had a little bit of a tone to it when I got it, but
it probably gutted itself.
Probably.
It started falling apart internally. Like Volkswagens do.
Yeah, Volkswagen stuff. Oh, that's awesome. Well, I guess we'll kind of wrap it up from there.
Okay.
Give me your absolute best piece of advice for anyone just getting into drifting.
This is always a good one.
It's why it's at the end of every episode.
So my advice is get a low-power car. Don't just buy some big power car. I know I'm going to sound like the typical person, but it's true. Get a low-power car, under 300 horsepower, in my opinion, and just learn to drive the line. That's one of the things that I see a lot of people miss, is that they get in the low-power car, get into a bigger power car, or in a low-power car, they just never learn to actually use momentum and learn the correct line, how to carry momentum and stuff in a lower-power car. And I'm grateful.
That's why I tell people go faster.
Yes.
Just go faster.
Speed makes everything easier.
Yeah.
Generally. Even crashing easier. It makes it easier.
Yeah.
But no, speed is key because learning momentum in a low power car and just turning laps, man, get yourself something reliable that you don't have to touch. E46, E36, G35, 350Z. Best seat time cars in the world. I've never drove a Z or a G35, but I know that the people that have them never pretty much touch them.
Cheap cars.
They just work. They got good power.
Cars.
They work, and you can just do tons of laps and learn it. That's the thing. A lot of people don't learn the line in momentum cars before moving up to something with more power. And that's just handicapping yourself when you go up to something with more power.
That's one thing I always hated because whenever I first started, started actually tandeming and stuff, I would get in line with people and say MIR. So there was one time we did the long sweeper under the bridge.
Okay.
And it comes out, and it was basically a bunch of S's into the road course layout. And people would come shallow on the sweeper and then dart straight through the middle and just try and flick it back and forth as fast as possible. And I'm like, that looks so stupid.
Yeah, stop it.
You have the ability to come all the way out wide on the sweeper, come back at the wall right where people are standing, and then do the same thing.
Yep.
Why? I never understood that.
I don't know.
People would just try and get as fast as they possibly could through the course.
Yep.
without hitting any type of zone. Sorry, I had to throw that rant out there.
No, I agree because I see the same thing where like people are learning, and the big thing is I feel like newbies always want to be up on the wall or they want to ride the wall, and it's just like yeah, it's cool, but like personally me, I'm not into hitting people's cars. I like getting as close as I can and not touching them, getting close to the walls as I can and not touching them. That's cool.
Yeah.
Smashing your shit into a wall, not cool. Smashing your shit into somebody else's car and just banging off each other. Sure, a door rub's cool sometimes, but don't be just blasting into each other, man. Like,
yeah, the whole ding.
No, that's not cool. Being this close to each other and not touching each other is way cooler. Like, that's way more car control, in my opinion. I could hit somebody every lap if I wanted to, but I'm not trying to do that. You know, like
just boof them on the run.
I might even just drive and T-bone them. Yeah. But no, yeah, just learn the line, learn to carry momentum. That's like the biggest thing that I feel like that benefited me is driving my E46 stock power and learning how to like keep momentum because then you can keep up with fast cars and a slow car and that's cool.
Yeah. That's why I always suggest for people to start low power because
Yep.
it really teaches you how to actually handle a car, teach the way the clutch works.
Yep.
You don't realize how much you drive with the clutch.
Oh, yeah. Non-stop in a low-power car.
Yeah, dude. Especially you start gripping a fucking Z up.
Oh,
I was running 255, 265, half-inch toe in, man. I'm like, bam.
Yeah, you're doing a dance the whole time.
Bro.
You're doing a dance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right foot's just pinned.
Yep.
Bing, bing,
Yep.
bing, bing.
That is literally your brake. No, another thing too that I think is good that people will probably say the opposite is I don't think it's a bad thing to add angle as long as you're not overusing it. Because I know a lot of people say don't add angle to a car until you're comfortable. Well, I learned with angle blocks and a dual caliper kit, handbrake.
Yeah.
But as long as you're not overusing that stuff, like over angling in a corner and then like driving out of it, like, yeah, don't do that shit. Have a friend that's going to tell you you're sucking.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't do that stuff.
I like when people say that because people get an angle kit and then they'll actually be scared to go all the way to full lock.
Yep.
And I'm like, good, stay that way.
Yep.
Stay that way.
Yep.
Slowly work into it. That's the proper way to learn on an angle kit.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah. And in momentum cars, you should not ever. Like I said, I had an inline, and I would never touch that handbrake unless I was chasing somebody. Yeah. There's no reason you barely ever need to be using a handbrake in a low power car when you're leading, ever. You should be nothing but throttle and clutch, like you said.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a crutch in case, or an adjustment tool is what I call it.
Yeah.
Just in case you need to make a small adjustment or save yourself.
Yeah.
So
throw it in a little
too
wonky. But all right, well, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
this was
was
a great
sweet.
episode, actually. Yeah.
I'd love to do another one of these for sure.
Yeah. Well, tell them to come to the studio in the comments section.
Absolutely.
But if you want, go ahead and plug yourself. Plug your people.
So
it's getting a little dark. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
definitely. Sorry if the video is a little dark out here, but my Instagram is the Justin Medina. I'm sure he'll put it under me, so I don't have to spell it out. And then if you guys are interested in like any of my S2000 stuff, I go over a ton of like building it and all that stuff. I have a YouTube channel, not very big. I just hit 1,000 subscribers.
Hey.
So I'll also put that. It's Medina Motorsports. I'll have him put the tag in there. Yeah. And then other than that, it's pretty much, I mean, you don't want to follow me on Facebook. Instagram and YouTube's where I put all
you
my
already
cool
told
stuff.
people that you're very quick at responding. So
I am.
They might be reaching out to you soon.
Don't hit me up at 2 a.m. for link questions, please. But I might be up and responding. But don't do it.
Yeah, be a little bit respectful of this time, okay?
Yeah.
Don't be a dick.
No, I appreciate all you guys. Honestly, motorsports community is awesome, especially drifting. You're number one. So,
cheers to that.
Thank you so much for having me on, man. This was awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. But, yep, that's pretty much it for this one. So, if you want, go ahead and subscribe. And, yeah, see you next week for another episode every Sunday. Peace.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding a road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwing the fastball. Just too quick for it. Peeling off like the whip orange. Seen they effort, this piss poor. I got too much I gotta tend to. Car payments and the rent due. Told y'all that I'm 6 foot, but with the